Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another leadership podcast from Learning and Development. We're here at an external leadership event, and we're very honored to have our very own Dr. Rainer Deutschmann, our Chief Operation Officer for the Telia Group. It's great to have you, Rainer.
Thank you for having me. Really a pleasure to be here.
It's very good to have you, and I think many people in the organization are very curious to hear more of your thoughts and perspectives on all things transformation, leadership, and you're in a way you are the man that kind of runs all our core business forward as well. So I think many people will be curious to hear your thoughts. Just to kick things off, we have a lot of abbreviations in our industry. We have CEOs, COOs, and what have you. But let's say you're on a holiday in the mountains in Germany, you're meeting a stranger, and they ask, well, what do you actually do for work? How would you explain that to them?
Very good question. The kids actually ask. I have a few of them, so they do want to know sometimes how the heck does the money come home? What do I do for it? So what I typically say first level is I bring the internet and the internet services to our people, to our customers in our markets. I actually have done this before Telia as well, and some of the other jobs that I had. And I think it's very fulfilling to see how customers use the connectivity services for their own life or, of course, for their businesses. So that's, I would say, the simplest way of explaining what I do. I really bring the internet and internet services to people.
That's a very good perspective to have, and it is also very true. Being a COO, you're a leader for a large company. You're a leader of many people, and whenever I talk to leaders like yourself, I always find it very interesting to hear what drives you. So I'll ask you, what are you passionate about? You can answer like privately or in your work life. But one of the passions that drive you?
Again, very, very good question. I have to say that I am not one of the people, which of course I do respect, but I'm not one of the people who are making such a difference between private and, so to speak, business life. For me, it's all life. I don't want to say that one is different from the other. It's all our life. It's all my life. So I do look at this more holistically. What drives me is one part, I would say, is to use technology for the better of things, specifically for the better of, serving people using those technologies. I think it's tremendously exciting because it is just never ending in terms of what cool stuff is out there. And sometimes, especially when there is these more radical innovations, it used to be the Web3 and the blockchain. Now it's the large language models that we see coming in. It's just unlocking an unforeseeable number of amazing use cases and benefits. And so thinking around how to use technology to get value out of it for our own private life, for our customers' life is just so exciting, and that drives me in the companies that I've worked for. Now Telia, benefiting from technologies, benefiting from working with better quality, with better efficiency, to be able to invest into even more technologies for the sake of our customers. It's just absolutely rewarding. And similarly, if I look at a bit more outside of Telia, what excites me as well is technology and insights regarding health. I mean, how can we as humans actually enjoy our life in a healthy way? Almost to an extent, I believe in this, we should have a long life and then we should just drop dead rather than having this kind of decline which sets on after 50, after 60, after 70, and then it's kind of getting more and more painful. I don't want to have that. I think we should be looking at ways how we can lead our life in a very healthy and happy manner. And then eventually when it's over, game over. But then we shouldn't be suffering. And there's just a tremendous amount of insights and also technologies which are more recently coming up, which give us, indications of what we should look for in terms of our own indicators and, so to speak, KPIs, and what can we do in order to improve the way of, having a healthier and therefore also maybe happier life.
And it's very true, and like we're at the heart of tech in our company, and more and more increasingly in our daily lives in the world that we live in, tech is becoming an integral part of our lives, whether we are aware of it or not.
Exactly.
So it's a very good perspective to have. So those are some of the things that you're passionate about. They make you get out of bed in the morning and do your work. On the flip side, because I know when you're very passionate about something, it can, or maybe not, be easy to be frustrated. So as a leader, when you're looking at your job or your life, like what are some of the things that frustrates you?
I'm not easy to be frustrated, first of all. I'm a glass half full kind of a person, so I do see the opportunity rather than the challenge. But what I observe in maybe our private lives, in my private life, but also in Telia, is that we I spend sometimes too much time on more inward focused solving of frictions or perceived frictions, rather than getting the energy towards the customer, towards the employees, towards the real making things happen type of action. And that can be, I think, tiring, because in the end, I think what motivates us as leaders and what motivates us as people is if we see cool stuff happening based on what we are contributing, what we are working for. Salary and other things may be important factors, and they are more, I would almost say, hygiene factors. But if I can see that, let's say, the transformation, I guess we come to that, actually is showing tangible progress. We see that our customers are more happy. We see that we are getting better products and services out there. That is something that I think I'm getting a lot of energy out, and hopefully, all of our people also see those as rewarding factors. So creating the energy for the sake of getting stuff done, rather creating energy which is then internally focused frictions, where we talk about complexities, where we talk about, all the things where we don't know how to work, who is accountable for what. All these things I think we should address, but then resolve. And that is one of the things that obviously we do in Telia with the focus on better way of working together.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if we keep the leadership hat on for a minute, you're also the leader of CPS, which is a large part of our company.
4,700 people.
Exactly. That's bigger than most other companies as well. Yeah. So you lead a lot of people, but you also lead a lot of leaders as well, which again leads other
420
people.
leaders, actually.
420 leaders, right. So when you look for a leader, or you're either recruiting talent or doing some training, what are some of the things that in your experience makes a good leader?
I look at two things, and we have a broader leadership framework obviously in Telia, but essentially if I look at a leader, I see two parts that have to come together for a rounded leader. One is I got to be enabling my people. I need to make sure I build a team that is having diversity, which are, I think, the strongest teams, diversity in all dimensions, not just male, female, but also age, but also competence, background, culture, and so on. And as a leader, then I help to address roadblocks, things that inhibit. I create clarity to my people, and then I just enable the team, my people, to be successful and therefore get the rewarding feeling of getting things done that I mentioned earlier. So I think that's the one part of the leadership. However, I don't think that is enough. And sometimes I think we are a bit focused only on this one. I am very convinced that there's a second part as a leader, and this is what I call thought leadership. So I do think very much that as leaders, we have to be competent people. And we need to therefore also have a lifelong learning mindset, a growth mindset, which means that I'm humble and say, I may have been on top of things last year, But by no means I'm on top of things this year unless I have kept up with the recent technology changes, with the recent leadership changes, with the recent whatever process and methodology innovations that are out there. So I think as a leader, we have a dual challenge, which is the actual enablement of our people, as well as we need to give thought leadership and clarity as leaders as well.
Yeah, I love that perspective, especially the second part, because we always need to evolve and improve ourselves as well. We live in an ever-changing world, and society and technology is advancing. Society is advancing. To always work on our own leadership as well, I think is a key thing as well. You mentioned our leadership framework, essentials of leadership, and we have 4 E's: engage, envision, enable, and execute, which are all great. If you had to pick one of those, which one do you think speaks the most to you?
Yeah, I actually had just recently the conversation with Alison on this topic, and we reflected, and I reflected a bit my role in Telia, which is a bit what we're also talking here. And I said that I'm excited about the role that I have because I have to play on all these elements. I have to be giving the company a bit of a direction regarding where are we heading to, what is the what's the vision of a digital telco? What does it actually mean? How do we work as a digital telco? What are the tools and the processes and also the people and talent we need in order to be a digital telco of choice with the purpose of really reinventing better connected living in our societies? At the same time, I need to be mindful that we have shitty things that are broken today, and we need to focus on fixing the things that are broken today. So I have to play from the envision part, of course, the enabling part with our people, with our societies, as well as we need to, and I need to be very much focused on, getting shit done. Sorry, I'm saying this, and that is basically the execution part. So for me, it's not like I can pick just one. I just need to be making sure that we have the right, and I have the right balance, that I focus on the leadership principles from all the way, envision to engage, to also then enable our people, as well as, of course, focus on the execution and making sure that we are all getting things done.
Yes, I love the execution part as well. And I think no matter where you are in the organization, we can all see, like, we have our processes that we're working on with the transformation, and sometimes we want to do things tomorrow and we just want to execute. So I think that's a good drive to have as well. We mentioned a bit previously that you're also the leader of CPS. So many people, and an integral part of moving our company forward.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about like the role and the importance of CPS within our company?
Absolutely. Very, very good. And we just had this morning with Sten Erik and the whole of the ELT here in Norway, the conversation on 2 topics, actually. We had discussed collaboration and we had discussed quality. And so on the collaboration part, we have, I think, as Telia, an absolutely outstanding what we call Telia way of working, which is basically in the simplest summary to say that, our what we call leading dimension is our countries. Our customers are here in the market in Norway, and our revenue and profits therefore are here. So the only focus that we can have is to win our customers' minds and money in our market. So that's the predominant priority. And this is the priority that we share across the entire company, especially when we look at the Norwegian country organization as well as basically the CPS organization. There's no other priority. The benefit that we have in Telia is that we can tap into the scale and the synergy, the weight that we have as a group. And that specifically means that as CPS, I have an additional contribution to make, which is to say, hey, if I need a product here in Norway for my consumer, like we talked about the security product just before the podcast, or I have a product that I need for my enterprise segment, JC, Jan Christian needs, I will be able to look into the existing set of products that we have and see, can I actually reuse? Can I plug this in faster and therefore cheaper and more efficient? And that is, I think, the added benefit that we're getting by having the CPS organization working in and for the market organizations and for the markets, but having that additional view of creating that scale and synergy by tapping into existing assets. We call them assets, whether products or platforms or processes, capabilities, to the benefit of being, faster and better in each of our markets. That's the way how we collaborate. So focus on the market and use the additional benefit of being more than the sum of the parts.
Right. You actually answered my next question, which I was supposed to ask you, but you touched upon it, that CPS not versus the local markets, but in collaboration.
Exactly.
But how they can meet the local needs and secure the collaboration. Very important.
Yeah, so I can just reflect the conversation that we also had as, look, I mean, there was a bit of a misconception, and I just want to use the opportunity here as well, that CPS as a kind of an organization would try to impose some target platform or some, target architecture on somebody. And I just want to again re-emphasize here, since I have been here 2.5 years now, which is quite surprising that it's already 2.5 years. Since I've been here, for sure, the only thing that matters to us is to make our market successful. And that means specifically, if I have to invest into a product or a process or a platform or whatever it may be, I do this specifically only based on a business case. It's all business. I mean, in the end, we're running a business, let's face it. And so we need to be business case driven. So if I can see there's a demand and I can supply the demand by using something I already have, great, I will do it. If that is faster and better than creating the same thing from the scratch. But if it's better for me to do something from the scratch because maybe I need a different solution and that pays off, yeah, of course we should do it. I mean, so we need to run a business and we should just make sure that we leverage that benefit of being a bit of a stronger group as Telia across 6 markets rather than just operating in a single market. So that's the way. And then what I also shared this morning with the leadership team was we have actually changed the setup of Telia quite significantly since I started in a way that we have refocused back to the market. So when I came, there was no CIO. There was no one that actually ran the IT in our markets. There was a group CIO, of course, Marek, but we didn't have the focused leader that was also accountable for the local integration, localization, and the local, the running of the IT in the market, and that would also be very closely linked to the leadership team in the market, like here in Norway, obviously it's Christian. So the first thing that I was doing is, I said, we need to have the local leaders to be able to take account of the local IT in this case. And so we then brought in for each of our markets a CIO, a local CIO, still being part of the CPS organization. So the CIOs have the benefit of being totally close to the market. At the same time, they see best practices, they see the platforms, they see the good, bad, and ugly from all their colleagues, and they can bring in and they can tap into this kind of knowledge and assets that we have there. Similar thing we have done on the product side, where we didn't have local product managers. We were basically operating to say there's one global product manager. Anyways, we're not global, we are very regional only. And then we said, okay, I said we need to change that. We need to have a local product manager that takes a product and makes sure that there is a full accountability and the product works in the market along the entire customer journey from discover to buy to pay and so on. And at the same time, that product manager is linked to a common product manager, which then holds basically the product core and makes sure that the product evolution, where we are investing into further features, benefits all the markets that are using that same product. Yeah. So we introduced that as well. So we are changing the model in a way that we have that optimal, I think, combination between being local, where the customer and the market is, at the same time using the benefits of having more than just a local market as a reuse opportunity.
Yeah, and just from listening to what you said, with a company like us in all the markets that we are, the size that we have, it can often in our industry things can move slowly because it's so complex. But from what I hear from you, this is also a competitive advantage in our market, that we can be more streamlined and work efficiently across our whole footprint.
Yes. Yes. I mean, complexity, I would say, not to be misunderstood, is not an advantage at all. The complexity is what kills us a little bit. So
exactly.
So we will have to continue to work on reducing ambiguity and complexity. I think that is a bit of a disadvantage of being a larger group. We need to be aware of that. I think all of us, we are aware of that. And we need to deal with clarity of who is accountable for what, hence the product manager role, hence the IT role, and so on. But I do see it as absolutely a competitive advantage to have a scale. Because, I mean, there's a reason why we have the so-called hyperscalers who are doing what are they doing, right? They are basically creating a single product and sell it across the entire planet. That is what they're doing, nothing else. And the local organizations are using a common product and localize it to the extent needed for the fit for the purpose of the local market, with a local price, a local promotion, of course, local language. Maybe there's even local branding. All of these things are, in my parameters, which I need to be able to change quickly without having to change the underlying product core or the underlying IT. And that is where we are going to. We want to have more common assets, common core, and then we can be able to be faster adapting to the market needs. Changing a price should be a parameter change. It shouldn't be an IT effort. It should be a parameter change. Yeah. Running a campaign should be done without any IT. It should be done using the campaign system, which we are now deploying in all the markets. So this is what is exciting, to say that we have those, best-in-class products and services and processes, and we are super fast in our market to use them without even having to do any IT work.
Yeah, and that's the fantastic benefit that we have that can push us forward. And another thing that's pushing and has pushed us forward, which I know you're very passionate about, is transformation. And just to give a bit of a perspective from my side, been in the industry for a few years. You hear sometimes the leadership group talks. Now we're starting a new transformation journey, and we're on a transformation, and like it can seem a bit like hard to grasp what it's all about. But I've always been like, does transformation ever end? Are we coming to an end state somehow? And I know you touched upon this on the all hands meeting a week ago.
Yes, it was a brilliant question at the time as well. Yeah, exactly. So I love that question. And so, of course, the response that you've, maybe some of you have heard me saying, is that, guys, let's face it, the transformation never ends. And the transformation shall not ever end. Because why? Because one of the most fundamental things we want to bring into the Telia DNA is the mind of continuous improvement. That is so important, that we say, are we ever satisfied with the customer experience, guys? I mean, we should never be satisfied, because even if I'm bad today, I'm better tomorrow, I'm good the day after tomorrow, would I not like to be better even the day after that day? So there needs to be, I think, a mindset, but that has to translate into also very clear processes and capabilities of continuously improving. And how do you do that? It's actually fairly simple. We need to basically say, there's something shitty. I mean, there may be an outage, there may be a customer complaint, there may be an issue that I'm aware of before it already materializes. I need to be, first of all, taking that up and not forget about it or kind of push it away. I need to be then looking at, okay, what can I do in order to avoid the outage, in order to avoid the customer complaint? This is an initiative. Some of these things are very easy. We can basically change a simple thing on our website. Some of these things are actually quite expensive. Maybe I need to upgrade a system, or maybe I need to change like the set-top box. Old one needs to be transformed into the new Android box or something like this. And those initiatives then need to be quantified, because they cost money. Most of them actually cost money, if not all. And then I need to take a conscious business decision, back to my point of business case driven. I need to take a business decision, which of those improvement initiatives am I doing and when, in what sequence, in what order, right? So that I get the maximum value out of it, whether it's the customer quality or it's a direct business impact. So the continuous learning, and we will always have some things that we can improve on. And therefore that never ends. So we need to have that improvement mindset, and we have that program. The No Reason to Call program here in Norway, the Operational Excellence program, where we deal with the larger, system-related and process-related issues that we have been running for the last 1.5 years. And the most newest member in the continuous improvement mindset is the Telia way of working continuous improvement, because we have, and I mentioned this, we have a complex setup. We have benefits from that setup, but there is also drawbacks. And so what we have discussed and agreed as GEM just before Christmas, as some of you may know, is that we are setting up a Telia way of working program. We call it Operating Model 2.0, which is based on our principles that we have set. The country is the leading dimension. We want to use the scale and the synergy as a group, but we want to have someone that is now continuously taking up the concerns that we have across our organization, puts this into actionable initiatives. We will then evaluate what we can do and what we should do, decide, and then implement. And so we have now two major improvement initiatives. One is the operational excellence for more technology-driven things, and the other one is the Telia working improvement. So we are always better in executing towards the markets and towards our customers.
And I think that also correlates so well with our purpose as well, because it's reinvent better.
Yes,
which is
always
active thing.
Exactly.
It's not becoming best.
Exactly.
We might be best in some areas, but it's always about improving, becoming better, reinventing better, and transforming is also a never-ending journey as well. Since you joined our company, we've been on this transformation journey for a bit over 2 years now.
Yes.
It would be interesting to hear from you. Do you have any key learnings on the road this far that you want to share with us that maybe you've learned on the road?
Yes. I think a couple of reflections. Number one, and I start with the positive, which is for me the most important. We actually are on track. That is just outstanding. I mean, who would have thought, and we have said it, and I think it's fairly shared in the industry, this is one of the most daring transformations across our industry. We have set out very daring goals, not only the cost efficiency, 2 billion saving 23 and 4 billion savings by 25. We have also defined the underlying drivers, which hardly any of the other companies that I've seen have done, which means how many products are we taking out? How many platforms are we going to be, taking out? How many of our partners and system integrators are we going to be consolidating to have less but much more efficient working with them? Right? What are the incidents that we are seeing, and how can we drive down the incidents? How can we drive down the number of calls in our call center, which is directly related to cost, obviously, right? And so we have been defining and sharing those underlying drivers because they keep us honest. We do this internally, and of course, some of them we also share regularly to our investors, and this is good for our own people and for external shareholders, because it just keeps us honest, and we do see where the progress works and where it doesn't work. So I think across all these parameters, by and large, we have done what we said we do. We transform the networks, we transform our operation, we simplify the portfolio, and we drive out legacy, and we drive in target platforms and products, and we have done exactly that. So I think it's great to see that we have this momentum, and I was quite clear also in the Alice and all stuff that now is the time to start monetizing and scaling. We don't have to invent so many extra new things. Let's now look what we have. We have a fairly good portfolio of things like products and so on. Let's just now make sure that we are actually using them. Give you one example. We have invested last year into what we call customer value management. Customer value management means, can I sell the right product at the right time to the right customer through the right channel? Not a very easy task, but it's hugely valuable, because the more relevant the product that I'm offering is, the more likely you will be happy and you will also pay for it. And that has required us to invest both into technology as well as into capability. And now both of these things we have in place, but we had a review just last week with all the CVM responsible owners across the company, including the Norwegian team. And we said, hey, there is so much potential out there which is not tapped into. There's huge opportunity now to actually ramp up and scale that engine of CVM across all our channels, the attended channels and the self-care, the digital channels, so we can create much more value for the company by selling better products and services and creating more revenues and profits. So now is the time basically of the transformation, I would say, where we go from starting up the first half of the transformation into now scaling the kind of the foundation that we have built. And I think that's a key phase shift now that we should be aware of. And I mean, all of us, we should now look at that opportunity. In terms of, I would say, the negative learning, if I look at that one as well, I think we have been almost too daring. And maybe also a bit of a, let's say, self-reflection to me. Maybe I have been a bit too daring in the number of things that I wanted to do at the same time. And I think we learn that it is just really so hard to change a company of our size with the complexities that we talk about in a short time. And we also need to be mindful about taking along our people. Back to the point of leadership, is actually a journey that requires communication, change management, taking everyone along and refocusing also on those things that matter. And this is just not a journey that happens in a year. That is even not a journey that happens in 2 years. So I think as a reflection to me and maybe to some of our leaders, we have been probably a bit too daring, trying to transform everything everywhere at the same time. And we have to just recognize it is neither doable nor even, let's say, fundable, because this also costs really a lot of money to do all these new things. So now I think we are, let's say, scaling back a bit more reasonably to say that let's focus on the really absolutely must-win battles. The network transformation is one of them, and then maybe the quality initiative for the fixed and network quality issues we have in Norway is another one of these must-win battles. Let's focus on those, and at the same time, let's scale the transformation foundation that we have set in place so that we get the maximum value out of it. And that will be the next 2-3 years of journey.
Very exciting. And you touched upon this a little bit, but when we're talking about transformation, it's easy to talk about our products, our processes, and our platforms, which is kind of like very tangible components of a transformation in our company. But I also want to touch upon like transforming our people as well, because it's an integral part, like the intersection between tech and people, and especially our employees that work at Telia. Can you share a bit about how Telia is planning to set up our employees for the future and the transformation that's coming as well in terms of like reskilling, upskilling, and developing all our employees?
Absolutely, great question. And you have maybe heard me talk about 5 Ps. I like to just remind everyone that we are looking at getting the transformation and the benefits from transforming across all our 5 Ps, and that is the products, the processes, the platforms, based on, most importantly, the best people and having the best partners. And those are the 5 Ps. And so I think from the beginning we have been very clear that the transformation without having our people is just impossible. So when it comes to our people, I would look into like you say, the need for just having a learning mindset, a growth mindset. I don't think we have maybe even spent enough time on this, if you ask me honestly. We have more recently focused as GEM and as ELT in Telia also much more on the culture and the culture change. I think this is something that even yourself, I think from the learning and development team will be so instrumental. What does it mean for us as leaders? And we talked about the need to enable, but also the need to, thought lead. So I think having the right skill at the right place will be ever more important. And let's face it, those skill needs change. If I look at the more advanced things, for example, the fact that now the programming as such, the coding becomes more and more automated. I mean, I was asking also the CPS in our all staff, how many of us actually have used the technology to get the autopilot in terms of the coding to just amplify the productivity of each of the coders. So we probably therefore need less of the more manual work in general. And we need, however, at the same time, those people who are unlocking the power of the technology for ever better productivity, right? And those are the future skills where we are using technology rather than we are being manually working what anyways a technology could do better. So I think that skill change will be driving us, and this is also a never-ending journey because those skills will always change. I think it's important for us to recognize there are these shifts going from more manual to design and exception handling, I would summarize. So those are the shifts. And of course, then the design means also the product and the project management and those things where we are looking at, changing towards the future requirements. And what we have done, and again, I think we can do even more, is enabling and empowering our people for the learning itself. Very concretely, we have introduced, when was it, about 2 years ago, the Pluralsight platform, at least for the CPS community, but we have opened it up for anyone that would be interested, so you can sign up if you like. We see, I would say, okay traction, but honestly, it could be better. It could be better. So we see engagement. We see quite a few very engaged of our colleagues. But I think there is still opportunity to embrace the learning more. And of course, it has to be also facilitated by the leaders. Because if I'm basically defining a 24-hour, let's say 8-hour day, and there's zero time for learning, it's going to be very hard for our people to actually do it, other than they do it in their spare time, which I do at least. So I think it needs to be enabled and also facilitated that we are learning. We are offering cloud learning. We are offering analytics learning. We are offering also the certifications, which, by the way, are also very useful for your CV. And you can actually then use it if, in case you wanted to ever change away from Telia, which I hope you don't. Then it's also a very useful skill to have and to show a proof of. So investing into the learning for the hard skills, and as well, of course, investing into the learning for the soft and leadership skills is important, where we have done, I think, good work. But I honestly, like I said, think we can and we should be doing as a company and as leaders more.
Very interesting. And of course, working in learning and development myself, this is something I'm very passionate about. And I'm glad you mentioned certification, because that's also an integral part, because if you look at the learning and development industry in itself, it's more about documenting competencies, because then you can actually evaluate, are we actually moving forward? Are we actually getting value for our trainings and pushing our people ahead? So I think it's a key part in our transformation journey as well. Yeah,
my vision would be that we are getting the analytics that we are applying, for example, for our customers, the customer value management, where I determine the need of a customer and then I recommend the right product. My vision would be that we get the similar data-driven talent management in place, where I can see, rather than looking in Workday, what is the job title, right? I actually see what has the individual employee done as a contribution, what trainings the employee is interested, what certifications and, real, tangible outputs have been created, and then offer opportunity within the company to further develop those skills on the job, so that we are getting much more fluidity in terms of what I can work on, rather than being stuck on a role or a job title, to really go into much more a services model, where, like the consultants, sometimes they have a much more portfolio driven approach to say, I have worked in those following things, these are the attributes and these are the deliverables that I have been successful on. Now I would like to develop further along this line, regardless of my title. So this is a bit the vision that I have, at least, to get into a much more data-driven, analytics-driven employee evolution.
Yeah. That's I'm looking forward to hearing more about that vision coming to life. Coming to the close of our conversation, being our COO, been in the industry for many years, working with tech, and as we know, tech is ever changing, and it's changing more rapidly than ever before. It's 15 years since the iPhone was launched, and we can just see how much that impacted our lives. So just briefly, before we close, I just want to ask you, when you look into the next 10, 15 years into the future, is there any trends you're seeing or anything you're excited about to go into the future of technology?
That's a very deep question.
I guess we could have an own episode about that.
Exactly.
But if you could pick one or two things quickly.
Yeah. No, so first of all, I don't think any one of us is able to look so far ahead. There are, people like Ray Kurzweil and futurists who are daring to look at when is the point of singularity. When are we basically being superseded by the general artificial intelligence, and those things. Very interesting. That's beyond what I'm probably, able to comment right now. You can have an opinion on it. But I do see, in general, a bit linking to those major technology shifts that we have seen, and the most recent one, again, is the large language model, that this really unlocks amazing productivity. And, what has driven the world, and what has driven especially those societies that have adopted those technologies, is exactly that adoption of, yes, it may remove some jobs and some needs for manual work, but it does enable a new set of use cases, a new set of talent and jobs to use the technology, and then to have just an absolutely 10x, 100x productivity. And so I think it is not so sound to predict exactly what it will be, but I think the prediction is that I have that we will find those major step changes going forward as well. And it's just very wise. My humble advice would be, everyone should just be on their toes to understand, and not superficially, but to understand a bit more in detail what those technologies actually mean, what is the power, and what are also the restrictions and the risks. And specifically for the large language models, as we have seen so many discussions also in social media, many of them slightly superficial. This is nothing else than, again, what we have seen earlier as a pattern recognition. It's kind of a learned model, a bit more sophisticated with attention models and so on. But in the end of the day, it's a trained model, and the restrictions that are in the training data flow through to the responses that you get from such a large language model. So you need to be aware of that. There's nothing around being aware of the truth. It is nothing else than just a repetition of what the training data has infused. Admittedly, a very large training data, but what the training data has infused. So important to be on the outlook of what are those technology shifts, go a little deep and understand the power and also the restraints, and how can I use the technology for my life, or how I can use the technology for my work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see how the technology develops, and maybe we'll see more of that when we look at the opportunities that lie there, especially within AI, which is very exciting. How we can utilize that for our own company as well.
And back to our lives. In the end, it's all about having a good life. And I mentioned this in the beginning. I mean, I don't distinguish so much between work life and private life. It's all a life. It's all one life. And having a good life, having a healthy life, which is physical health, mental health, social, plays a big role. We need to have very much enough time for our friends and the family. There's a big contributor to actually being healthy, even physically. Having good sleep is another very, very big factor, which has been underestimated a bit. I mean, these are all components which we should be aware of, and technology can help to further improve. So.
I have a 2-year-old son at home, so I would love if technology could help me get some more sleep. That would be very good. But Rainer, it's been very, very great to talk to you. Lots of interesting perspectives and insights on where we are in Telia and where we're going. So thank you for taking the time. I know as a leader yourself, you have a busy schedule. So I hope all of you enjoyed listening to this conversation, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Thank you very much for giving me the time. My pleasure.
You've just listened to another podcast from Learning and Development. I'm your host, Eivind Halvarsen. Producer for this episode is Eivind Halvarsen. Post-production and graphics done by Eivind Halvarsen and Maria Romstad.